Alright, so we're going to set up this Angular app with Nginx and make it publicly accessible using an EC2 server. And so first thing we're going to do is launch an EC2 instance. I like to use the default instance and T2 micro as the default size. And so we're going to click through all the configuration until we get to configure security group. Here we'll want to add HTTP access to our EC2 instance because we want people to be able to access the Angular application over the web. And so in this case, we create a new security group called tutorial, and then tutorial 2 to add the description, and then we simply just add a new rule for HTTP. It has built-in defaults. You can customize these based on what you want, but I just go with the defaults here. In this case, I've already created an existing security group matching those rules, so I'm just going to select it using altrusight default, and you can see the rules pop up HTTP. All I did was add a HTTP type rule, and these are just defaults. So you go to review and launch. You can ignore this for now, and then simply launch your instance. You can create a new key pair, but I already have one, so I'm going to choose that one, and then launch the instance. And so my key pair is located in this on my desktop within my project directory. So I'm going to navigate there really quick, and you can see the key pair file I've stored in there, altrusight default.pem. I go to EC2. Okay, my instance is running now, and so I'm going to want to connect into that instance using my default, using my key pair permission file. And so I just copy and paste this as long as I'm in the directory where this file is directly located, and type yes, and I'm in EC2, my virtual machine. And so the next thing we're going to want to do, first to show you guys, this is an empty EC2 virtual machine, printing out all the contents, or the created directories, and there are none. So the next thing we're going to want to do is go to our Angular application and get build files that we can copy over to EC2. So I'm going to do that using ngbuild in VS Code, and just wait on this to build. Alright, so it built, and you can see this dist folder pop up with all our static files. And so we're going to want to actually copy that into EC2 using SCP. And so all we really need to do is, so basically to break down this command, SCP is kind of like a shell copy, which uses SSH to copy over files from your local directory into the directory on your virtual machine. And so this is my permission file and the path to my permission file. This basically just says copy this entire directory into the remote directory. And so my build files are located at this path under the distribution folder, or dist folder, and this asterisk just means copy all the files under this folder into this remote directory. The one thing I'll have to replace is this, because I have a new EC2 instance URL, and so let me actually copy that. And then we're going to want to tell where to copy it into with colon and then the directory. Here I'm just going to copy it into my home directory. and run this command, and you can see it copying from my local into EC2. And it's simply loading right now. I just wait for it to finish, and it's completed copying. And so if we ls in EC2, you can see this folder has popped up, and if we see to it and print out the contents, you can see that the contents match the contents in the build folder generated by VS Code. So we have our Angular app inside of EC2, but we have nothing to run it with. For example, if you go back to EC2 and go to the public IP or IP address, nothing comes up because nothing's being hosted right now. And so we're going to utilize Nginx to do that part for us. And so Nginx is basically like a web server, but it also has a lot of other built-in capabilities like reverse proxy that'll allow you to place your backend and front end on the same server, and load balancing for larger projects. In this case, I need to install Nginx into the EC2 machine using this command sudo Amazon Linux extras install Nginx1. And basically this is going to create a default Nginx setup for us, which we can check out in a second. And so now that Nginx has finished installing, we're going to use Vim, which is like a terminal text editor, and go into the etc/nginx folder that was created for us, and specifically go into the configuration. And you can take a brief look at this configuration. This is all created for you by that command. And the key thing to focus on is that the port is at 80, and the root, which is where the content is hosted, is user share nginx HTML, which is kind of a folder holding static files, just like the files we just uploaded to EC2. And so whenever you start up the Nginx server, it's going to host these static files at the URL of the EC2 instance. So we're going to take a brief look at that really quick. First we can actually cd, what was it, user share Nginx. And so you see this HTML folder. Go there, ls. And then the index.html is what's actually pulled in the server there. So we can take a look at it using nano index.html. And so basically the title is going to be test page for Nginx HTTP server. It's got this styling, and then this is kind of what it's going to look like. Welcome to Nginx. This page is used to test, blah, blah, blah. So whatever's on this HTML file is whatever is going to be on our EC2 server public IP address. And so we're going to start the server using sudo systemctl start nginx. And so this just booted up that Nginx server. We can check the status using, and it says started the Nginx HTTP and reverse proxy server. So if we actually go to the address of our EC2 instance and copy and paste it, you see last time before starting up the server, nothing shows up. This time, that default page shows up. So test page for Nginx HTTP server, and then this is the default index.html page. So now you can kind of see what we actually want on this page is the index.html of our Angular application, which will actually show all the information for our Angular app. And so what you need to do for that is navigate into the Nginx configuration file again, and the key change, which I like to separate the root from the server root, is show that the default location or the root location of your HTTP server is going to serve up um, the HTML file in your Angular project build. And so that's located, if you have a Linux AMI, at home EC2 user / the name of that folder. Add a semicolon, and then we're going to delete this. And so at the location root path, it's going to grab the index.html of our Angular project. So we exit the text editor, and then we reload the Nginx server, just reloading the contents, and then we restart it so that those updated contents are shown. But there's going to be a problem that you see at first, so let me navigate to EC2, and it'll probably say forbidden. Yeah, and this is because the files, or one of the directories in the path that our Angular project is hosted on in EC2, is located on in EC2, doesn't have the right permissions. And so we can compare the permissions with the HTML file that Nginx was just working with using this command, name IOM, and then the path was user nginx share.html. And so you can see it is just a bunch of letters, D, RW, XR, -XR, -X. This is just read, write, I think execute, I can't really remember. But we just want them to match. And so if we go to the path that our folder, our build files are located in, which is home /EC2 user /altrusight, you can see most of these match, except this EC2 user folder doesn't have the right permissions. And so we can add them using chmod, which is basically used to change permissions of a file or directory, and then home EC2 user. Then run again, and you can see the permissions have been updated. So we reload again the web server, and then restart the web server, and voila, the Angular project is now hosted on EC2 at this public API or IP address that anyone can access. And so that's mainly it on Angular and Nginx.